Are You Really Going to Eat That? Podcast episode 145. Hey there, I'm your host Wendy Hill and I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist and expert in female hormone health. I specialise in helping women gain confidence and understand their bodies, allowing them to shine. I'm a huge foodie and this podcast allows me to bring you an eclectic mixture of guests where food and health is our uniting passion. So Tracy, I asked you before, now we came on, so I'm going to make sure I get it right. Tracy Plescourt, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So Tracy, welcome to the podcast. I'm delighted to have you here today. Could you kind of give the listeners a little bit of a background as to how you got to where you are today and kind of, some of the things that we're going to have a chat about today?
You bet. Well, thanks for having me, Wendy. Like you said, my name is Tracy Plescourt. I live in Minnesota. In the United States, and I am a former advertising executive turned life coach. So not the typical career path that I think most advertising executives have, but I absolutely fell in love with mentoring other people who had a passion for being amongst other creative people and really kind of presented themselves as lifelong learners. And so I was very attracted to that personality. And so for 20 years, that's what I did. I ran an advertising agency. I was more behind the scenes, not so hands-on with the creative, but had the opportunity to make a big impact in other people's career and really kind of mold the culture of the agency. And I had this little nagging voice that kept saying, there is something more for you, even though I felt like I was quickly approaching kind of the peak of my career. I did feel like there was something more. I created Selfmade You, and I teach people how to self-coach to achieve anything, to create any result in their life, overcome any sort of challenge. Most often it has something to do with wellness, but it does tip into wealth as well. And so Selfmade You is really a dream, a passion business, a dream come true for me. And I teach people how to become self-made, I guess, in a nutshell.
Love that. And I love the fact that it was kind of all the stars aligning for you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Great that you could spend those last few years with the kids before they went off. And, I'm more and more finding myself, I'm a second careerer, and I'm finding myself more and more talking to women who have reached a certain point in their kind of life and said, actually, there's something else that I want to do. And you can see that kind of passion, and I think that really shines through. You can see that passion. And it's not that you didn't love the career that you were in, it's just that you were like, actually, I want to do something else. And it's often around that, making that change, supporting and helping people to make that change. And I think that is just so powerful, because it transcends the weight loss, doesn't it? I mean, you talk a little bit about sort of, helping people's metabolic health. And I often will say, that in my previous job, one of the things that drove me to kind of a career in nutrition was that I could see the difference in performance between someone who was well nourished and someone who wasn't. The whole team that was surviving on, energy drinks and Haribos in meetings were the ones that you could see that crash. And they were the ones that I worried most about. It's like, oh God, what's he done now? Because they were kind of, not being putting too fine a point on it. They were a little bit emotionally volatile. Right. Whereas the ones that were better nourished were the calmer kind of people, the ones that you could kind of go, right, I know what he's going to have done in that. It's a very male dominated industry where I was. So I know what he was going to do, because, he reacts in the way I expect. Whereas I find that people who kind of sugar laden don't. So I think, it's that was a kind of and I think that was one of the big drivers for me. So I love the fact that you talk about this metabolic health. So explain to the listeners, because I think it's a terminology that we throw around as health practitioners that people don't really understand what it is. So can you explain how you help, how you coach people to help them improve their metabolic health? What is their metabolic health?
Yeah. So I, not unlike most other people who have been on this lifelong pursuit of, their ideal weight. Most of us have tried so many diet programs, and, there's so many myths out there, the calories in, calories out, and the food pyramid and all of that. And what I learned to be true for me personally is that it all came down to balancing out my hormones, really understanding what insulin is and its effects on your weight, and amongst a whole lot of other, it has a lot of roles, but really understanding that your personal data, understanding what your blood glucose is and how it reacts to certain things that you eat in your environment. But basically your metabolic health has everything to do with how your body creates its energy, where it sources its energy from. It's either sourcing it from the food that you're eating, right? Or the sugar that you're taking in, or the fat that maybe you have on your body. And so if you're somebody who's looking to lose weight, it would behoove you to understand how to train your body to use the fat that's stored on it as its source of energy, and not to rely on only what it is that you're eating. So a lot of us Americans are used to this diet that is very, very high in sugar and carbohydrates, and our bodies have started to habitually run off of carbs and sugar, which, to your point, people show up in a much different way. You show up with brain fog and far less energy, and your cognitive ability is subpar. And so I believe that becoming self-made and achieving whatever it is that you most desire is a comprehensive effort. Like it takes all parts of self to be firing on all levels. And so, we want to focus on your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, of course. But I would say, the one that I really underscore is your metabolic health. And so I teach people what I call the 4 basics, and it happens. I'm very clever in the way that I teach. So I have to teach in frameworks because my little peanut brain needs to have visuals. And so I call the 4 basics the understanding yourself. So it's SELF. And so it's solving the mind math, which is the mental and emotional component. It's eating the foods that fuel you, because we're all unique. We all are uniquely fueled. And we want to understand what foods actually fuel us, learning to collect the data, understanding what spikes your blood glucose, what if you're insulin sensitive or you're insulin resistant. You can learn that through collecting and analyzing your data. And then finally, fasting, so that you can balance out your insulin. And that just takes, extending the period of time in between your meals. We're not talking, days upon days of fasting. We're talking about giving your body the time that it needs to really drop the insulin levels so it can tap into those fat stores. And so those are the 4 basics that I teach. And I think that it has effects on your life, both personally and professionally, socially, because you are firing on all cylinders. And I think people sort of lose sight of that, and they focus on maybe one of those aspects. And most often, I think it's the physical aspect, because, I know as Americans, we're very vain. We look in the mirror, and that's what decides, our self-worth. And so I teach people, being self-made means taking responsibility.
Where would we find you most? Where do you kind of hang out most? Are you a Facebook, Instagrammer? Where would we find you most?
I'm probably equally on Facebook as I am Instagram. So Instagram, it's Selfmade You, and the same thing on Facebook. So nice, I do. Easy. Yeah, we have a free private Facebook group. It's called the Student Union. And so anybody can join that. And I'm in there live coaching at least once a week, if not more. So I would encourage your listeners to pop in there as well.
Brilliant. That has been amazing. There's I think lots of really good takeaways, lots of great tips, but ultimately it's about self-responsibility, isn't it? Taking control. And when I love what you said, when you're in control, then you're in control. It's not rocket science, guys, is it? Right. Thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed it today. Before I go, can I just I'd just love to do my quick fire round with you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So are you a heels or trainers girl?
Oh, I would say I'm a trainer's girl.
And is it sushi or pizza, or should I say sushi or enchiladas?
It is sushi, if I'm being honest, even though it does spike my blood glucose, that rice gets me every time, but I do love sushi.
Oh, bless you. And summer or winter?
Oh goodness. Okay. I live in Minnesota. So
it's pretty cold.
Yeah. Winter lasts much more of the year. So the grass is always greener. I think I would say summer.
And it's really true, because I think most Brits I talk to, we say summer because, we don't get cold like Minnesota does. But it's that whole, like, we don't really get great summers either. So you just want what you don't have, do you?
Exactly.
Definitely. And my final question, now it is early in the morning when I'm speaking to you, Tracy, so you might not know yet, but my final question for you today is, what have you got for tea? So what have you got for your evening meal? I'll say in a kind of a multi-national one. What have you got for your evening meal today?
Oh, my evening meal. My husband is the cook in our house.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. And so we went last night, we went grocery shopping, and he is making a sausage and sauerkraut dish for us this evening. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, I make a nice sausage and sauerkraut with apples in it as well.
I know.
Nice.
Yum.
Yeah, that sounds great. Can I come for tea, please? It's a long way to go for tea.
Yes.
Tracy, it's been fantastic talking to you. We'll put all of your links in the show notes. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you for watching this excerpt of this week's Are You Really Going to Eat That podcast? If you'd like to listen to the full episode, then the link is in the notes below.